Good morning, everyone, and welcome to Nadex Morning Analysis, where we look at some potential hotspots in the markets for today. It is Friday, May 14th. Crazy. My name is Todd Rich. I'm with Nadex. With me, as always, my good friend, Brian Caprice from Keep Trading Simple. Welcome, Brian. Hope you're having a good morning.
I am. It's Friday.
It's Friday. Let's go Friday.
Friday.
Happy Friday. Before we jump into it, I do need to share this disclaimer that trading involves risk and might not be appropriate for everyone, that any trading decisions you make are solely your responsibility and at your own risk, and that this is an educational session. Please do not construe anything Brian or I say as a buy or sell recommendation. We are doing this for your education purposes. So let's just talk about just quickly, what are we looking at? We got a relief rally yesterday after a pretty rough week, Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday.
Yep.
We're getting a bit of an extension of that this morning. Part of that maybe on the heels of the CDC announcement yesterday that for fully vaccinated people, they do not need to wear masks. I don't know how that's going to work, but we'll figure it out. But it just kind of goes to the effectiveness of the vaccine. Other than that, we did have retail sales that came out this morning. They did not come, they came out slightly worse than expected, but nothing that's really all that egregious. Retail sales, they were expecting, the forecast was for a 1% increase. It came in totally flat. So it's worse than expected, but it's 1%. And when you take a look at it, if you take automobiles out of it, they were expecting a forecast of 0.7%. It actually came in at negative 0.8. A little worse, but again, nothing that I don't think it's shocking the markets at all. People are spending more money on services than they are on goods. Probably because people are out and about and wanting to finally get their manicure, pedicure, go to a restaurant and get a haircut.
They're just tired of being home.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
It's some type of interact. I don't want stuff. I want experiences. All right, with that, I think what we're going to do is we're just going to take a quick peek at some technical levels. NASDAQ has obviously been very volatile this week. We'll take a look at some technical levels in the NASDAQ, and then the U.S. dollar actually seeing weakness across the board. I think we're going to focus in, though, specifically on Canada. So, Brian, I'll flip it over to you.
Yeah, I mean, again, seeing retail sales down, as you mentioned, it was already expected to be much less than last time. And there's actually an article from Zero Hedge that talks about U.S. retail sales disappoints in April as the stimmy surge stalls, which, again, when you're sending money to a lot of people, they spend it. When that money is no longer there, they don't spend it. That's just how it works, is that's just, disposable income. But overall, in the last 24 hours, we have seen, again, it's not just in the last 9 minutes, it's in the last 24 hours, you can see that euro dollar's up, pound dollar's up, dollar yen is down, dollar Swiss down about 40, which is pretty big. Dollar CAD down 27, even though that one went straight up yesterday after the news. Aussie dollar also up, and then really euro pound completely flat, and pounds up just a little bit here. So not a ton. If you guys remember, we talked yesterday about how we had this the speech from Macklin. Even though this is negative and red right now, again, this was a big popper yesterday, so we'll cover that. But as far as what we can see today, again, having red news is not necessarily great, but the previous was also actually bumped up, so it's kind of a wash for the overall kind of markets in general. Coming across, I think they're all in kind of interesting positions. I mean, right now in the NQ, this is kind of and again, this is why it's so important to focus on that session break or that session entry. Here's the European session right here. I'll change it to black so you guys can see it, make it a little bit bigger. Whoops. Bring it back. I'll change to black. So there's the European session. You can see it pulled back to a level of buyers. Now we're seeing some profit taking from it. And again, the news being negative for retail sales is not necessarily great overall for the indices. And that's given us a pullback, and it may actually give us another opportunity to enter this trade down here at 13,167. It is a negative number, but it was, the market kind of expected that. We'll see how much the retail trader really looks into that one. But, that definitely explains why we're seeing a pullback. I think any type of a push higher, we do need to be careful. If you guys look at this level over here, you can see we had an area where we had the highs coming lower, 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 lower. And then it was a news-based move, but it was a very strong push to the downside, very, very fast. So it's an area that I would definitely draw some caution towards, right here around 13,270-ish area. Um, Overall, I think because we've had such a negative week, not that retail sales helps it, but it is Friday. You guys know the Feel Good Friday is
Feel
very,
Good
very common.
Friday.
Yeah, I mean,
I could use
people
one of
like it a
those.
lot. Yeah, I mean, so it's out there. As far as news for the rest of today, I mean, industrial production at 9:15. It's kind of expected to be a little bit lower. I mean, the preliminary University of Michigan consumer sentiment. Remember, this is what people spent, and again, it's kind of like you get that spending hangover. If this number comes in higher than 90, that could be the rally that we need for the markets today to kind of retrace the losses for the week and actually end up. Um, Two areas that I think you need to watch out for on the top side, though, were this 13,389. You can see it was a drop, a two candle base before we continued to push lower, and it got front run. So there's probably some sellers sitting in there. So in any type of a long position, I'd be getting profit a bit before 13,381. And if we can have a big day to the top side, kind of the similar situation up here. It's been tested at 13,537. Both of these areas are areas that I'm looking for as well for maybe like a Sunday night open. If we can have great momentum here, and then we end in either of these two levels on the weekend, we have any bad news this weekend, they'll be looking to take shorts as the market opens on Sunday, and those could be two levels. So maybe we get maybe we get up there today. Maybe we don't. Maybe it becomes a Sunday or Monday morning trade, early first thing. So, but overall, I would say Feel Good Friday is probably what we're looking for. I think there's a potential entry down here, and again, maybe we get down to this level at the 10:30 reversal down at what is it 13,165.50. Maybe an area where we kind of see some buyers step back in again. We've seen it. We saw it in the European session, and it was a nice little rally up of 95 points from the European Open till now. So that's probably the best we got for right now as far as the three indices go.
All right. I do want to take a look at this over on the Nadex platform, and I was just kind of putting in your levels so that our charts match up. So anyone following along can.
Twinsies.
Yeah, exactly. Hey,
Twinsies
by
on
the way,
Friday.
you're wearing a blue shirt too. So look
No,
at
it's not. It's actually gray. It's the reflection. Remember, new
Okay.
office. I haven't got it all set up. I don't have a light here yet, so it's kind of this is the reflection off the monitor, and yeah, it's the purple that you
All
have
right.
going.
Well, look, we are kind of twinning.
It's close. Close.
People would really confuse us if I actually grew in a beard.
Yeah.
And had hair on
Right.
my head.
I do have hair. I do have hair, but I do have gray.
I've got some. It's just starting to. What are you gonna do? What are you gonna do? I do want to. Brian talks a bit about this, and we talk about parabolic retracements. We did have a very volatile week, particularly in the Nasdaq. You can see this is where this level. Hold on, I'm going to do this. This is the level where we were on Wednesday, and we had that pretty severe sell-off. And we are now trying to climb our way out of it. So this, right around 13,300, interesting level in the Nasdaq as we get closer. But I want to put it in perspective of where we were to begin the week, which was all the way up here. So we are getting a little bit of a relief rally. We're getting a little bit of a continuation of that. We saw that here in the European session. It would be nice if we saw this, continue its way up, but we do have some technical levels above that it would have to get through if we were really to try to take back everything that the Nasdaq has given back this week, and that's a lot. When we had it across the board, and the other indices as well. So, and there are some interesting levels if we see some pullback, as Brian mentioned. Again, the way to play some of these would probably be binary options. You see a pullback down into this range, and you think it's going to find some support there. You might be able to pick up a binary option at a decent price. Remember, each one of these at the end of the day going to 100 or 0. So it all depends on what you think the Nasdaq, where it's going to finish at the end of the day. If you want to hang on to it. The other is trying to play some of these moves and day trade them. So, all right. With that, there's some technical levels in the Nasdaq, a little bit of perspective. Let's take a look at that U.S. dollar, which we're definitely seeing some weakness in.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you're seeing it across the board. Obviously, the red number doesn't help. If you guys remember yesterday, I mentioned that this BOC, when Macklin speaks, he does have the power to kind of move the CAD. We expected there to be good CAD data, and it wasn't necessarily negative data, but here's the response that we got. Was this basically this very, very fast run up in basically an hour of about 70 pips. It went up to its ATR. And again, pure definition of a parabolic move, right? And then again, we were typically looking for the retracement. When you look at the actual data, and I said it wasn't necessarily bad data that drove it higher, but there's some things that Macklin talked about, and it's important to understand these things. Again, confirming kind of a 3-ish inflation target. This is what we're not seeing yet with the dollar, okay? He says that we're concerned about if the Canadian dollar continues to grow, it'll become harder and a bigger headwind for export forecasts. Talking about over here that we don't have enough workers, we're still trying to, grab it. Inflation's temporary, but we're not going to look at one reading for it. Some sectors are still weak. Everything he said was really good, but the fact that they said we're worried that the Canadian dollar is getting too strong is what led to this. So all good data. Again, parabolic move. We talked about the price dropping yesterday, and again, you're seeing the dollar just starting to collapse right now. Really the Canadian, this is more or less the US dollar, not the Canadian dollar at this point, but this is a level that we've seen. We had our hits over here. We had a front run. It's continuing to push lower. I would say right now, I would definitely stay bearish. I mean, if we look at kind of a larger time frame on this, we'll drop to the 4-hour. You can see minus this early kind of spike this week. I mean, this has just been nothing but straight down, right? It's just been collapsing. That's a 4-hour chart. Here's your daily. We'll shrink this so you can see it. You can see how fast this collapse has been, right? And this is what they're worried about, right? I mean, it's just collapsing. I mean, the peak back here was in March of last year, right? And then just boom, 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 straight to the downside. So, we're in an area where, you got to really question, is there going to be continued pressure today? And I would say, yeah. I would look for profit targets down here, the 120.75. And this green area is not an area where I'd willing to take long. I'd actually look for this to go a little bit lower. I don't, because the Canadian economy is an export-based nation, it's very, very hard for them to control their currency versus the US dollar. There are futures markets that are going crazy. So things like lumber, which is considered Canada's second biggest export, through the roof. If you guys try to do home products, through the roof. So this is one of those ones that, I am obviously at this point, I am pound bullish. I am also CAD bullish based off of where we are with the recovery in different nations. So whenever I see an opportunity like this and any type of basing, I do like this one for continued shorts. Where we are right now has been a level where we've had buyers step in, but I see them failing and coming lower. And again, mark this off on your chart. I mean, although we have the basing level here, there's a bit of a push lower. Anything below really 120.60, I'd be looking for shorts, particularly going into the weekend. Because remember, Monday we typically have one trend for the dollar, and then it reverses the rest of the week. So this is one of those pair I want to stay bearish on.
Yeah. So I just want to ask. I mean, this is an ugly chart for the U.S. dollar. I mean, the U.S. dollar is just getting crushed against the Canadian dollar. Mm-hmm. With this Canadian dollar strength, I think it is actually important. They do export raw supplies, right? Like, mm-hmm. I mean, lumber. I mean, that's actually one of the biggest headlines lately is people can't find lumber to build houses. What does Canada do? I mean, does this completely crush them? I mean, you're thinking the Canadian dollar is going to see continued strength. How does that impact their industry and their ability to continue to export? I mean, we don't think about this in the United States too much. Mm-hmm. We only think about the Canadian dollar if we're going to go up to Toronto or Montreal or Banff or Whistler or something.
Yeah, I mean, switch back over to my chart real quick. I'll show you what lumber looks like. It's not something we can trade on Nadex, but just for kind of what Todd's talking about. Here's the beginning of March. We're down here, and look at the price of lumber. As the recovery happens and people are craving lumber and home builders are starting to try to build, this is kind of the stuff that we get, and this is the environment we're in right now. So for Canada, there will be a demand for lumber, but they need to make sure that again, export countries like to keep their currency cheap. They're already starting to remove kind of their quantitative easing because they are getting ahead in kind of their battle against COVID-19. So kind of one of those things. It's nice that it pulls back for them. They like that because that means people are buying more or able to get access to it. But eventually, at some price, it doesn't make sense to buy from Canada anymore, and they're going to keep a close watch on that.
Yeah. So I mean, and the point, and I wanted Brian to point that out is markets that you don't necessarily look at, but you hear about. You start hearing about some of this lumber. I mean, we talk about oil all the time, but you can actually see proxies for that a bit in the currency markets. You start to get a feel for how that's all intertwined. The reason I'm teeing that up, our next boot camp, June 22nd, you're going to see that go up on the Nadex website soon. It's how to day trade foreign exchange. And it'll be an entire day devoted just to the FX markets. And Brian will be doing his parabolic retracement session then. So you got
Yeah.
that to look forward to in just over a month. With that, if you got any questions for Nadex, please email us, customerservice@nadex.com. Got any questions for Brian? He is also quite accessible. You can email him at support@keeptradingsimple.com. Again, we looked at some technical levels in the NASDAQ. We looked at the Canadian dollar, just a market you might not necessarily look at that frequently, but there is some volatility in there. There's trading opportunities. Binary options, a great way to potentially play that. With that, want to wish everyone good luck in the markets. Brian and I will be back Monday morning. We will catch you all then. In the meantime, stay safe and enjoy the weekend. Thanks, everyone.